for services. My name is Deborah Holloway. I'm the Education and Resource Coordinator at the Brain Injury Association of Virginia, and I'll bring you the webinar for today. I just wanted to let you know that we are able to do this as part of a project that is supported through state general funds with the Department for Aging and Rehab Services. And our goals for today's training is to do a quick overview of what Brain Injury Association of Virginia does, and then hopefully you can just gain a basic understanding of how and why Virginia transitioned to this Commonwealth Coordinated Care Plus managed care system. And then at the end, we're going to review the Commonwealth Coordinated Care Plus waiver and the services and changes that occurred with that program. Our mission at the Brain Injury Association of Virginia is to educate individuals, make them aware, provide support to family members and caregivers and individuals with brain injury, and to improve the quality of treatment and research for individuals with brain injury, and obviously improve the quality of life for all affected by brain injury. And we do this through many activities throughout the year. We have an annual conference that we host in March of every year. We do webinars such as these that target different topics that we hope will interest family members, individuals, and professionals. We provide advocacy on an individual basis and also do a lot of statewide advocacy at the General Assembly to try to push through and promote funding and programs for individuals. We host a caregiver forum in the fall, specifically for those that care for individuals with brain injury. We have a website with lots of resources and a search feature so you can find providers, and a chat feature so you can chat a question if you would prefer it that way. We also are getting ready to host our annual Camp Bruce McCoy. This is a one-week session camp that takes place the end of May for adults with brain injury. So that's just a quick overview of BIAV. Okay, a little bit about CCC Plus, or Commonwealth Coordinated Care Plus. The primary goal of having this program in Virginia was to improve the overall health outcomes of individuals with Medicaid. And statewide Medicaid manages care for over 214,000 Virginians. And this program became available in August of 2017. This is a required program, so if you are one of the identified qualifying populations, it is a requirement to be in this program. And this program is not only your just traditional medical services, but it also provides behavioral health services and long-term care services. And the care coordination is also provided by the provider with person-centered care and a team approach. So Virginia's General Assembly basically directed Virginia Medicaid, or DMAS as you often hear it called, to transition individuals from a traditional fee-for-service delivery model of healthcare into this managed care model. And as I mentioned earlier, this is to improve the quality of care and also gives the General Assembly more of a predictability when it comes to budgeting for Medicaid costs. The way this is different from that fee-for-service that was mentioned earlier, that was the traditional Medicaid insurance coverage, is Medicaid has contracts with managed care companies, and there's 6 of them, and we'll go over what those companies are. And they pay these managed care companies a per member per month rate. So they get the same rate no matter what the individual's needs are. So it is in the managed care organization's best interest to provide care to those individuals to keep them healthy and functioning and needing less care. The managed care companies contract with the providers directly, and the providers enroll with these managed care companies, and they bill the managed care companies for any services provided. So that's how it's different from your fee-for-service Medicaid. So who is included in this population? So individuals that were 65 and older that had Medicaid, adults and children living with disabilities that qualify for Medicaid, individuals living in nursing facilities with Medicaid. If individuals have what was called the technology-assisted waiver or the elderly or disabled consumer-directed waiver, they had Medicaid and they are in this population that currently has the managed care services. Individuals with the 3 developmental disability waivers, so individuals who have these 3 waivers, they are part of the managed care system for their acute and primary medical services only at this point. Eventually, their long-term care services will be rolled into this program, but at this point, that is not the case. And some of the other programs that were in place prior to Commonwealth Coordinated Care Plus coming to existence, there was a program called CCC that was for those that have Medicaid and Medicare, and that was a, you could choose to be in that program, but now they're all rolled into this mandatory program. Medallion 3, ABD populations also transitioned into this program. So who's not included in this program? So there's some really specific groups and people in specific other programs that might not be considered eligible at this point in time. I'm not going to go through each one, but just for example, the GAP program, which is the Governor's Access Plan, which is a limited coverage for people with mental health issues. That plan, those people are carved out or not part of this program. Those that were part of the PAYS program or had health insurance premium payment program, a HIP program. I'm going to go into more detail about what that is later, but that's, that program actually, those individuals are not currently in the managed care program, but will be soon. So a lot of these programs are transitioning to the CCC Plus system. So other individuals that weren't included originally, people that are in specific facilities or state residential treatment programs, hospice, those types of individuals were excluded at this point in time. So Medicaid basically contracted with 6 health plan companies, and they include Aetna, Better Health, Anthem Health Keepers Plus, Magellan, Optima, United Healthcare, and Virginia Premier Health Plan. And so these are the 6 plans that individuals can choose from. And there at the bottom, you'll see a web address where you can visit that web address and get more information about each of these companies. You can even kind of compare the 2 or 3 of them to see what might meet your needs better and learn more about the details of what the plans actually provide. The benefits to be enrolled in one of these programs, as we kind of talked about a little earlier, is these programs are person-centered. Everyone has an individualized support plan. The standards that individuals receive with Medicaid are the same. If someone is unhappy with one of those plans, they have a choice and they can change when appropriate. As I mentioned earlier, there is a designated care coordinator identified for each individual, which is a new service. So you have a kind of a point person that's overseeing your case or your care. There's a team of healthcare professionals working together, and they have other ways they can assist you with other community resources, housing, food, and some of the plans have additional benefits that they offer. So, for example, dental care for adults or membership to a fitness gym. So you have to go to that website I mentioned earlier and kind of look and see what the benefits are for each plan and what makes the most sense for you or your loved one. So there are some standards that were put in place when this program was developed to be adequate and to meet everyone's needs, and that included making sure that the plans had appropriate staffing and appropriate types of providers. Their localities were open at appropriate times. They were accessible to individuals, and of course physically accessible, and translation services are available, needed to be available. And then of course their proximity to all individuals, so there's not a neurologist on the list that contracts with them, but they're only in a certain part of the state. There needs to be spread appropriately so everyone has access. And as an individual transitions to this program, they have continuity of care that's provided. So they have to they have 90 days where they have to pay what the person currently has in place and the providers, if that's going to change in a new plan. And they would need to go out of network and get the service an individual needs if they don't have it in network. And if an individual is enrolled in this program and they're in a nursing facility at the time, they're not going to move them if they don't choose to participate. I'm going to talk a little bit about just options for problem resolution. Anytime you have a new program and transition and change, often there are questions and problems that come up. So an individual's first step would be to contact their care coordinator. Once again, that's that point person at their managed care company that they choose. And they can go through their complaint process or grievance process there at the MCO and appeal that. And then they can also, if that's not successful, they can go through the Medicaid or DMAS appeal process. And also I wanted to offer up there's a whole division of the Ombudsman program for long-term care, and there is specific individuals that are familiar with this new plan. And if you go to that elderrightsvirginia.org website, and actually there's a tab at the top right that says the CCC plans, which is the Commonwealth Coordinated Care Plans. And there's the number. If you have questions or concerns about the program or the services you're receiving, that's a great place to get some assistance. So some other requirements that were put in place during development is for these managed care companies to cover at least what was covered prior at that in the Medicaid fee-for-service program. They can establish different service authorization requirements or services, but they can't impose a more restrictive benefit max for those that existed prior for that in that fee-for-service Medicaid program. And I also wanted to share, once again, some other resources, the CCC Plus VA.com website and numbers, the toll-free number you can call if you have any concerns or questions. Okay, now I'm going to go into more detail about what the CCC Plus waiver is and what services are provided. So we talked a little bit about what this Commonwealth Coordinated Care Plus coverage was, and the CCC Plus waiver was developed as they combined what was the elderly or disabled consumer-directed waiver and the technology-assisted waiver. So they pulled those waivers together and renamed them, basically, and call them the Commonwealth Coordinated Care Plus waiver. So the criteria to be eligible for this waiver is similar to what it was prior. The same assessment tool, the UAI, is used to see if people are eligible for this waiver service, and the same functional capacity is needed, medical nursing needs, and the individual needs to be at risk to being placed in a nursing home to meet the criteria for a waiver. And basically what we say when we say a waiver is basically the ability for state to be flexible and develop a plan or a program that provides alternative services to individuals, alternative to a hospital or a nursing home is what we're talking about right now. So this waiver, the CCC Plus waiver, was developed as a result of an alternative placement to the nursing home or hospital. So once again, this kind of gives you a visual EBCD waiver and tech waiver combined to be the CCC Plus waiver. And this all occurred almost a year ago, 1st of July. It did expand some of the services individuals receive, and I'm going to go into more detail about what services got added. But first, I'm going to talk a little bit more about the screening process. An individual has a right to be screened first to see if they're eligible. Then they need to go through the financial eligibility second. So they have to still be eligible for Medicaid. And the screening does need to be provided free of charge to an individual. So here's some criteria. Basically, the screening team is going to be made up of an individual from the health department and sometimes an individual from the social services. If you live in the community and you're interested in you or someone you care for being screened, you would contact your local Department of Health and request a screening for the CCC Plus waiver. The screening can also be done in a hospital prior to someone leaving the hospital. so those services can be set up for them at home. An individual has to have a monthly income limit of $2,205 and a resource limit, so in other words, money in the bank that cannot exceed $2,000. For a child or someone under 21, the parent's income and resources do not count regardless of the child's age, and that's actually under 18. So once they're 18, they count as an adult. So once again, if you have a child that needs these services, the parent's income and the parent's resources in their savings account, for example, do not count against them when it comes to that resource limit. They're going to look at the child's resource limit and the child's income. As I mentioned earlier, that UAI is a screening tool. There is currently not a waiting list for this waiver if an individual is found eligible. And you can receive services through this waiver if you're on the waiting list for one of those developmental disability waivers that I talked about earlier. You can also go online to Cover VA and see if you're eligible financially for Medicaid. So what types of services are provided with this waiver? There's a listing. I'm going to go through them all individually, explain them a little more clearly. There's adult day health care. That's a group setting. It's typically more of a social recreational setting, and the majority of people who use this service are elderly that can't be left alone. Personal assistance services is someone coming into your home or community setting and providing assistance with the basic activities of daily living, helping you prep meals, get laundry done, transportation possibly, medications, making sure, reminding you to take your medications, making sure individuals are eating properly, drinking enough fluids. You cannot receive personal assistance services if you're receiving private duty nursing. There is a soft cap. In other words, there's a limit on how many hours you can receive a week at 56 hours. Individuals can receive more, but there's a process or individuals have to go through to receive more than 56 hours a week. And these services can be provided through an agency, or an individual with a disability or family member can direct and hire an individual to provide these services, or a combination of both. A little bit more about private duty nursing. It's skilled in-home nursing services, and it's not covered under home health, and it's provided by a licensed RN or LPN. And basically, an individual must be dependent on a ventilator for at least a portion of the day and will require complex tracheostomy care. And this is only provided through an agency. And this is a service that was provided through the tech waiver and is currently being provided through the CCC Plus waiver. So an individual needs to have dependence on a ventilator to receive that particular service. Respite is designed to be relief or break for the primary caregiver, family member, whoever's caring for that individual when other services aren't being provided. And it's limited to 480 hours a year. So you have up to 480 hours you can use towards respite. And skilled nursing care, it is included in skilled nursing care and can be provided by LPN or RN. And once again, can be directed by an individual, or an agency can provide the service. Service facilitation is support for an individual who wants to do consumer-directed services. I've talked a little bit about consumer-directed services, where an individual loved one or an individual with a disability can basically hire and oversee the care they're receiving. And the service facilitator comes in and educates that individual, called the employer of record, and the process they have to go through to facilitate the plan, and they help with timesheets and kind of help coordinate services that way. And a managed care organization care coordinator can serve as your service facilitator if you so choose, or service facilitation providers are available. Personal emergency response system is another service that is provided through this CCC Plus waiver, and it's it's funding for some electronic devices for individuals who can be left alone for a little while and are safe, to remind them to take medication, or if they get they fall or get into an uncomfortable situation, they can request help in an emergency. Okay, this is a new service for the EDCD waiver now, CCC Plus. It was available in the tech waiver, is environmental modifications. And this is physical adaptations to an individual's residence or vehicle, and it's for specifically to ensure the individual's safe and able to access what they need to, and it's help positive for the health. And it enables the individual to function with greater independence, and individuals can spend up to $5,000 a year on environmental modifications. This is just a quick reminder. Sometimes people see environmental modifications and assistive technology funding and see that's a service that their loved one really needs or they really need, but they're not interested in the other services such as personal care, respite. But just as a reminder, you really have to be accessing personal care and respite services to receive any of these other services. They don't stand alone. You can't just access assistive technology, for example, and not personal care or respite. Assistive technology is another service provided, and that's for specialized medical equipment, supplies, particularly those that will help individuals be more independent or communicate with their environment, and that also has a limit of $5,000 a year. Transition services are specific for an individual who's currently living in an institutional setting, so an individual that might be living in a nursing home and wants to move out into the community and get their own apartment. Maybe they've improved and they've worked on skills and want to be more independent. And with this CCC Plus waiver, they're able to have support to their own home. And that might be setting up utility deposits, or they need help with purchasing dishes to set up their apartment. And this is a one-time $5,000 limit to help the person transition. I mentioned, I just wanted to mention early periodic screening, diagnosis, and treatment really quick. This is a Medicaid benefit, and it's specifically for children, and it's for children under the age of 21. And if you are, if you do have a child with Medicaid under the age of 21, this is the service or kind of the extra payments that help an individual pay for things such as classes. This is what pays for dental services for children with Medicaid. So just be aware, you don't have to do anything to receive this. If an individual is younger than 21 and has Medicaid, they automatically have this. So some things may be covered that weren't covered with traditional Medicaid. Medicaid Works is another program I just wanted to make sure people knew about. It's a program that allows people with disabilities who need some support to still be able to work and be independent and enroll and get those personal care services they desperately need in order to be able to work. And they, caveat is just to enroll before your income gets above a certain amount, and there's more information about it at that link, and there's some limits with the income and resources. I also wanted to mention that some patients may have a portion they have to pay for services. So if individuals have an income over that amount a month, they may have to pay kind of almost like a co-payment for services or a co-payment for personal care. I mentioned HIP earlier, HIP being one of the programs that's currently not enrolled in the Commonwealth Coordinated Care Plus program. It's called the Health Insurance Premium Payment Program. It's also the same for kids. And basically, it's for if an individual has access and is receiving coverage for a private health insurance plan, basically, and they have Medicaid as their secondary, then Medicaid actually assists with some of the payments for the private plan because in order to help keep that individual covered with this private plan, so it helps the individual pay some of the premiums. This is a separate application process, and you can still apply to see if you're eligible. And as I did mention, this is a program they are talking about transitioning rather quickly to the Commonwealth Coordinated Care Plus program, so we'll be part of the managed care system at some point in the near future. And there's more information about the program. There are some specific criteria you have to meet to be eligible. I also wanted to remind everyone about trust and the ABLE accounts. These are things you can put in place for your loved one or yourself, where you can put money away, save money without it affecting eligibility for waiver services. And this way you can have some extra spending money saved away. There's attorneys that can help individuals with that, and there's a couple links to kind of help you learn more about trust and the ABLE now. A few more resources I wanted to share, more information about CCC Plus, and there's an email address you can send any questions or comments to if you're interested in getting more information via email. It's a great way to do that. And there's my contact information. My email address is my first name, Deborah, @biav.net if you have any questions or need to contact me. Thank you so much for joining us, and have a good afternoon.